What was the single operational rule that let Gustavo Fring outmaneuver Heisenberg again and again until one quiet visit to a nursing home broke it and blew everything up? Stay with me, because in the final act, I will point to one scene in Season 4, Episode 8 that makes the rule explicit, and one scene in Season 4, Episode 13 that shows how breaking it killed him. This is commentary and critique for education and entertainment. Major spoilers ahead. We open on fluorescent light and stainless steel. The camera glides through a fast food kitchen, then lands on a man who never raises his voice. On the surface, it is hospitality. Underneath, it is logistics. From the start, Gus plays a different game than Walter. In Season 2, Episode 11, he declines the deal because Jesse shows up high at Los Pollos Hermanos and later gives Walter 1 hour to deliver. The frame says it all. Calm posture, clean counters, no wasted motion. Comment below with one episode and your one-line theory on Gus's rule. I will test it against receipts later. Here is the rule I am arguing he lives by. Absolute separation. Separate face from force. Separate emotion from operation. If a move exposes your feelings, do not make the move. When Gus holds to that, he beats Heisenberg. When he lets revenge leak through the surface, Heisenberg finds a crack. Watch how the separation rule wins him ground. Season 3, Episode 11, at the restaurant booth, Gus feeds Walter and slides him a proposition with a parable about providing the lighting is warm, the tone paternal, the pitch clinical. In the very same arc, he isolates variables by reinstating Gale, then engineering a slow divorce between partners. Season 3, Episode 13, the lab is immaculate when Victor escorts Walt to be eliminated. Gus arrives in a crisp suit and kills Victor with a box cutter in Season 4, Episode 1. It is savage, but the staging is procedural. Message delivered without a speech. Personnel error is an operational leak, not an emotional insult. Curiosity loop. If Gus is so disciplined, why does he keep visiting a useless old enemy who can barely move? Put a pin in that. The answer is in a flashback by a pool. Back to the receipts. Season 3, Episode 12, and Season 3, Episode 13 are a chess lesson. After Walt runs down the street dealers and Jesse becomes radioactive, Gus refuses to rage. He switches the assistant, fences Jesse off, and tells Mike to contain. Even under cartel pressure, he holds the line. Season 4, Episode 11, the phone threat where he tells Walter that Hank is a dead man if Walter interferes, is delivered like a calendar reminder. It is clinical, not personal. Separation intact. Pattern interrupt. If that is true, then why risk his own life by standing unarmed in front of Don Eladio and lifting a glass? Because the separation rule is not cowardice, it is probability. Season 4, Episode 10, that pool party is planned like a recall notice. He smiles, he toasts, he vomits on cue, and he walks out. The frame is blue water and white stone, but the math is black and white. Compartmentalize, prepare the antidote, wipe the board. With separation, he wins a war without firing a shot. The counter theory says Gus's rule is no half measures. That sounds right, but it is incomplete. No half measures is a method. Separation is the operating system. Look at Season 2, Episode 11 again. He refuses the deal because the partner is an addict. That is not about half measures. It is about removing the human variable that broadcasts risk and emotion. Look at Season 4, Episode 1. Killing Victor is theatrical efficiency, yes, but it is also a sealant over a leak. If no half measures were the core rule, he could have shot Victor in the head. He chooses a method that reimposes separation by terrifying everyone into silence. Now the pool flashback. Season 4, Episode 8 drops us in bright afternoon sun at Don Eladio's estate. The shot is wide. Tiled deck, shimmering water, elegant crystal. Max pitches chemistry like a startup founder. Hector, with that lazy grin, makes it personal and executes Max at the pool's edge. The camera freezes on Gus's face. A portrait of silent shock that calcifies into purpose. Here the rule is born. He will never again let emotion write his moves in public. He will build a system that looks like charity, speaks like compliance, and moves like freight. Curiosity loop payoff. So why does he keep visiting Hector in the nursing home? Because the one place he allows emotion is private ritual. He quarantines his grief and his rage in that room. He can be the civilian there. He thinks the rest of his system remains sealed. And that is the crack Heisenberg prize open. Ethics line. We are not glamorizing harm. The interest here is craft, logic, and psychology. A 2025 analysis would call Gus an executive who weaponizes boundaries. When the boundary holds, chaos stays outside. When the boundary leaks, it floods. Receipt run 2. Season 4 narrows to event. Walter realizes he cannot beat the lab or the security, so he looks for the human seam where separation fails. Season 4, Episode 12. He approaches Hector, the one man who can lure Gus into an emotional space. The image is stark. A bell, a gaze, a trembling jaw. Walt seeds a rumor through Hector's movements and contacts that will force Gus to visit. It exploits a habit Gus has never audited because it lives in the private ritual zone. Watch that visit in Season 4, Episode 13. The nursing home room is washed out light, hospital beige, and beeping vitals. Gus arrives immaculate, as always, but his posture shifts. He sits, he leans, he lets himself savor humiliation. He even loosens the tie. That is the breach. In every other arena, Gus requires buffers, intermediaries, sterile rooms, predictable rhythms. Here, he grants proximity to a man who hates him. The separation rule is off for just long enough that a bomb and a bell can enter the frame. Pattern interrupt. People say Gus would have survived if not for Walt's trick. But test that against the receipts. Season 4, Episode 8 is the origin of the exception. Season 4, Episode 13 is the consequence. Gus built redundancies around trucks, supply, personnel, even law enforcement. He did not build a redundancy around his private vengeance visits. The rule that beat Heisenberg is the same rule that, once broken, made Heisenberg possible. Let us rewind to Season 3, Episode 11, At the Booth Again. The way the camera frames Gus and Walt tells you everything. It is not two equals, it is a mentor auditioning a liability. Gus keeps the public face and the criminal force on different planes. Walt cannot. He signs his work with pride. That is why Gus wins 90% of their exchanges. Walt only wins when he can drag Gus's system into the one place Gus refuses to automate. Another payoff. Remember that phone threat in Season 4, Episode 11. Gus does not yell. He does not bargain. He lays out a flowchart. If you interfere, the agent dies. If you comply, I spare your family. He even pulls Walt in the desert, shows him the skyline, turns his back, and lets the wind speak. Separation allows him to send a message without a scene. But the very night before his last visit to Hector, he breaks his own pattern. He goes, himself, close enough to smell the antiseptic. The rule fractures. There is one more telling receipt. Season 2, Episode 11, After the 1-hour test. Walt delivers while the drop site buzzes with fluorescent hum. Gus's people are silent. It is a machine. By Season 4, Episode 13, the machine is still perfect. It is the operator who steps inside the blast radius. Compare the frames, bright, cold, efficient spaces, versus the stale, human indignity of the nursing home. Walt understands that the only room where Gus is not a machine is the room with Hector. That is where he points the fuse. Counter Theory Part 2 says the real failure is that Gus underestimated Walt's willingness to poison a child. True. Walt crosses a line in Season 4, Episode 12 to pry Jesse away. But even there, Gus's separation rule nearly saves him. He isolates Jesse, tests his story, changes pickup patterns, and approaches Hector with meticulous caution. He even checks Hector for poison in the hall. The only step he cannot simulate is not going in. Micro vignette. Picture Gus alone, late at night, sleeves folded, checking a ledger by the glow of a desk lamp. He cares about margins, schedules, and the dignity of work. That is not a mask. It is a value. The tragedy is that he thinks he can wall off the part that still sits by the edge of a pool listening to a shot echo for years. He cannot. No one can. So what exactly is the one rule in one line? Keep emotion and operation in different rooms. When Gus obeys that, he turns cartel assassins into pawns, outmaneuvers federal pressure, and builds a lab beneath a city that never notices. When he breaks it by feeding a private ritual that gives an enemy proximity, he hands Heisenberg his only lever. Type, "I saw the receipts," if you will rewatch that nursing home scene with that lens. Verdict: Gus Fring did not lose because Walt was louder, braver, or smarter in the lab. He lost because the man who built a perfect machine kept a small door unlocked for grief and revenge, and one day his rival walked through it with a bell. Separation beat Heisenberg until it did not. Subscribe to Scene Autopsy, where we solve television mysteries with receipts.